has just started now. Guys, if you are joining us today, my guest is the great DX Ferris. Thank you for joining me.
All right.
How you been, sir?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's an honor, man. We kind of, we can touch on this in a little bit, but we go back a little bit, and I haven't actually seen your face in a very long time. So it is good to see you and good to chat.
Good to be here, man. As far as I'm aware of it, we have maybe 4, maybe 5 principal connections.
Okay.
Number one, we are 2 of approximately 5 Americans who do not live in New York City who really give a shit about fun-loving criminals.
100%.
My brother being a third one. So number 2, all 3 of us, you, me, and him, we are also arguably among the top 10 Grand Buffet fans in the entire world.
I would say at least 2, 3, and 4, right?
Demonstrably. So number 3, you are my brother's best friend from college.
That is correct.
Now, I don't know if we have ever discussed this or if we've ever done it sober. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. But my best friend from college is also named Nate.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, so whatever it is, we are bound by forces larger than the both of us.
I love it.
Number 4, as I guess a subset of part 3, perhaps, we are among an elite, small cadre of people who have beaten the groundbreaking video game Dragon's Lair.
Fantastic. Yes, we have.
Yes, we have.
Yes, we have.
And number 5, parenthetically, as long as we're talking rap rock in Philadelphia, we are also among an elite group that recognize how fucking awesome Bloodhound Gang is.
Fantastic. Yes, we are. I mean, that is like, I would say we have probably, the 3 of us, done more for the Bloodhound Gang than quite possibly the Bloodhound Gang.
Well, we tried.
We did try.
I got into the music writing game thinking that maybe it might be possible to get bands like Bloodhound Gang out there a little bit more, push the stuff that I liked. And then I saw the game didn't exactly work it that way. I kept going anyway, though. Yeah.
So growing up, like, what were you listening to? Like, what was playing around the house? What was kind of your thing?
Man, it started, I was thinking about this lately. My music fandom started when my parents got me a little tiny Winnie the Pooh 45 player with a bunch of Disney songs, stuff like Cruella de Vil, these little 45s that maybe had the song or maybe a storybook with them. Cruella de Vil, I Want to Be Like You from the Jungle Book, a lot of good stuff. And I had those. I was a kid. I guess I was walking at that point. And I'm a nocturnal person. Like, I'm just a genetically hardwired night person. My body wants to be awake at night. And as a kid, I used to spend a lot of time just lying in my room, just hollering, waiting for somebody to come in and talk to me or do something, because I was lying there and I was bored. And at a certain point, I was lying there screaming and nobody was coming in to see me. And I looked over and I saw a little record player there. And I was like, yeah, I could listen to some music. That would entertain me. And I put on some music and I felt better. And that became my company, and that became my peace. And as I look at you can't really see it from the camera angle, and I have this funky space age background going here. But I'm sitting talking to you in a room full of entirely too many CDs and books. And, I'm a hardcore devotee of physical media. And I need to have a library. And I look at all this shit and I think, it really goes back to me as a kid, just sitting there feeling shitty, needing something to do and reaching for some music. So this whole media library here is a lifetime worth of self-medication for me. If I need to feel up, I need to feel down, I need to chill, I need something. Music generally has delivered that through my life. My dad, my brother has probably taught you, my dad was of the Frank Sinatra generation. He was born in 1933. He blamed rock and roll for dismantling the world that he grew up in. He was really not comfortable with it. Late in his life, he became a very active Beach Boys fan, oddly, but that's another story. But yeah, he really hated that world. That said, he had some interesting stuff in his record collection. He was a card-carrying Anglophile. He was, by profession, he was a medievalist. He was an internationally ranked Chaucer scholar. So the Beatles were kind of his one exception, even before the Beach Boys, whatever they are. So yeah, there was some Beatles in the house growing up, and that kind of walked me through the door. And then he had like Zappa's Hot Rats record. He was a jazz fan, yeah. But Beatles kind of like walked me into the door when I was looking through Dad's records and looking for something fun to listen to beyond Captain Kangaroo. Beatles kind of cracked it all open for me.
Yeah. So here's a weird question that I ask, and it's because it's something I do probably as a bit of OCD, but do you still have that Winnie the Pooh record player?
I have one that I bought from eBay and have not actually opened up. Okay. So it's been sitting there for like 5 years. And well, again, you can't see my background here, but I don't have that one, but I have one like it.
It's so funny because it was literally going to be my follow-up was, have you tracked it down? If you don't, and you did, because that's the kind of thing I do. I mean, like this stuff all around me down here is quite similar, specifically because I just moved out of my family home, or we moved. My father passed away last year. And,
sorry. I did not know that.
It happens and it sucks, but yeah, so we got rid of the family house. And so all of the stuff from like my old childhood bedroom and all that is all kind of surrounding me. That's where this Mickey Mouse comes from. That's where this is the keyboard I learned how to play music on, like I'm literally surrounded by everything that I grew up with. And it's borderline hoarder nature, but
well, learn from my mistakes, man. Ferris's rule of ironic causality. One application of that is that you are only going to need the stuff that you get rid of.
That's
so everything that you hold on to, you may never touch, but if you get rid of it, you are definitely within 2 weeks going to need it for something very important.
It's so true. It's so true. There's so much stuff I had to throw out when we moved out of the house. We had like a big, huge dumpster outside and we were just tossing everything. So like I kept little things like, all right, here's my Star Wars figures. They're coming with me. Clearly. Here's my He-Man figures. They're coming with me, but some of the bigger stuff. And then like I very dumbly, after all of that was finalized, did a Google search of some of the stuff that I threw out. And I was like, it was worth how much? Like,
Well, I mean, they're just, sadly, there comes a point where there's only so much stuff. As George Carlin said, you can't have everything. Where would you put it?
That's right.
And you can't deal with all this stuff. I would like to think that my kids will hold on to my library the way I have with some of my dad's, but I don't dig through his shit,
Yeah.
And one time my wife told me, like, she was watching Dr. Phil and she was like, watch this. And Dr. Phil says, those things that you're holding on to, it's not about them. It's what they make you feel and what they remind you of. And she showed me that like it was supposed to be some kind of big revelation. Right. I was like, yeah, duh.
Yeah, that's why I kept it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't get rid of this chamber music CD I'm never going to listen to because, it's part of my dad in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a weird thing since last year that I've been looking at some of the stuff of his that I saved. And in my head, I started looking at my own stuff and wondering, like, is someone going to save that thinking that it meant something to me when literally it's just something I never threw out, but
somebody really going to hold on to my little plastic case full of like my compilation series Ferris music number 1 through 9, the cassettes.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they probably will though. I mean, I would like to get my hands on that. Kind of just a side tangent off that. Have you started this year's Christmas mix yet?
I was just working on one of those. I try to make my Christmas mixes. I'm a big Teeter fan. I'm a huge Christmas music fan. I'm a Christmas guy. And I usually have my Christmas mixes made like between 1 and 4 years out. You know, I have something like 9 of them in various states of assembly and address. And last year I couldn't finish this year's quite while there was still snow on the ground and while the Christmas vibe was still in the air. You know, I try to make them by January 2nd at very least. So that way I can sit on it for at least a year and it feels fresh. And I didn't listen to it like 30 times before like I started listening to it, you know, so it still feels good. So I just this afternoon completed one of them, but my proper mix, I got to get on that. I had the election hanging over my head.
Yeah.
So all year long, I was kind of wrestling with the issue. Spoilers here. Gil Scott-Heron, one of the last poets, he has a song called Winter in America.
Okay.
And I was thinking about whether or not I was going to use that to open the mix or whether or not I would have to, or if I felt like I had to, would it be appropriate to?
Sure.
Because it's not a peppy jam.
Right.
So I've been working on it to answer your question.
Excellent. I would love to see it when it's in its completion. You and your brother both make the most killer Christmas jam mixtapes. So shout out to that. They are without a doubt one of the best things of the season. Like I definitely get on with that.
Thank you. This year's, I think, is going to be DXmas number 25, and they're not exactly in chronological order. So last year's was, now 2017, I'm looking at the list here, was 24. No, last year was 25. Yeah, this will be 26. I still have like 27 I'm working on, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Yeah, I got a few just lying around.
It's awesome. You hustle hard in every aspect of your life. I appreciate
you got to grind at this shit, you know.
So jumping from the Beatles, like what was your high school kind of flow? What were you getting into when you're in your prime to be able to start kind of taking control of your own music?
Man, you know, I started becoming an active music fan around 1981 when Pac-Man was a big thing. And I heard there was a song about Pac-Man.
Pac-Man Fever?
I was like, what? Yeah, Pac-Man Fever, as it turned out. So I started listening to the radio around then. You know, Van Halen's cover of Pretty Woman was a current single at the time. So I started listening around then, and by the time high school had rolled around, I'd gravitated into hard rock, metal, Quiet Riot's, the first big album that changed my life. Motley Crue changed my life. I was all ready to become a full-time card-carrying punk at a certain point, and then I discovered Slayer, and I was like, no, hold up. I'm not done with metal yet. Metal has some good places it's going. So yeah, like high school was long ago enough, and we were enough in a backwoods town that I was tapped to be both the punk and the metal demographics in there for my first couple of years. You like the weird shit, you know?
Yeah.
I graduated in a school of like maybe 300 people in a class of maybe 75. So it was not big. So I had to be like both the punk and the metal guy for a little while.
Okay. So that was, you were in California, PA at that time? Is that correct?
Yeah, California, PA, which is about half an hour south of Pittsburgh, which was this odd little mix of being a backwoods town, but also a college town,
right.
A lot like IUP is.
Yeah.
So you know, on one hand, surrounded by a lot of people that would, you know, take time off to go hunting on the first day of the season. On the other hand, you know, we had a very good college radio station that played a lot of punk, a lot of metal, that kind of thing. Really exposed us well. You know, when I look at Pittsburgh classic rock radio, I missed a lot of things. You know, I couldn't tell you what any major UFO songs are. I missed a lot of that shit.
Okay.
But with the little backwoods country college radio station that we had, when I look back at 80s stuff like punk, new wave, metal, all the cool stuff happening in the 80s, I don't feel like I missed much. You know, I feel like that college radio station really made a difference in my life.
Yeah. So you ended up going to Cal. Did you work at the radio station at all?
I did not. When I was young, I'm talking like high school, I thought I wanted to be a radio person. And I was lucky enough that a friend of mine connected me with a board op job at the time on a little AM station, a little bit of FM. And I was very lucky in high school to realize that what I was thinking about doing as a career was not good. Not good for me, not a good match for me. I hated just sitting in a room for hours and hours by myself doing other people's shit. You know, as an adult, I can write, I can do things, but sitting around like waiting between segments of music to play, that was just awful. I didn't want to process anybody else's shit. I wanted to do my own shit. It took me a long time to figure out how to do that. But I knew early on that I did not want to become a radio guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you end up going to college for?
I graduated. My undergraduate degree is in professional writing, journalism.
Okay.
So journalism was what I went to school for. I had a real kind of tumultuous time studying that. You know, I mean, if I could push a button and do anything and just change my life and give myself a superpower, I would want to be Stephen King. You know, I would love to be able to sit down and just write stories and novels and stuff. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Not at this point. I'm still working on it. But in college, the further I got into my writing degree, the further and further and further I got into a bad case of writing block. I couldn't write about anything. I couldn't make it happen. Yeah. In maybe my junior year, I did an internship with the Department of Defense World War II 50th Anniversary Commemoration Committee for a Pentagon subcommittee. And I had a writing assignment to finish just a one-page sheet of informational stuff that I had done research on and write like a very short thing about it. And I couldn't even make that happen. So something, as I went through my undergraduate degree, for a lot of different reasons, writing was becoming more and more difficult to me. So I also didn't want to be one of those people that changed his major after like 100 credits and wound up spending 7 years in school. So I wound up finishing up that journalism degree, but then I graduated and I pretty much wiped my ass with the journalism degree. I tried doing everything else I could have possibly maybe done, and that just that didn't take either.
Okay. So that's kind of where we met. Shortly after that, right? Is around that period. At what point did it kind of pivot that you were like, I'm just going to write 50 million articles and books? Like, because how did it go from being a struggle to being a career?
You know, the short answer to that is that I found out what I wanted to write about. And once I started writing about what I liked, all of a sudden I was unblocked. All of a sudden I could unflow. All of a sudden I could sit there and talk forever and write forever and go, go, go. So when we met, I was in graduate school the second time. I was going to the same school that I went to originally, Cal, one of the Pennsylvania state schools, little small school, but an effective school, cheap school, importantly. Yeah. But before that, I had gone to a real prestigious, really nice, really fancy Catholic Pittsburgh institution called Duquesne. Really nice school, the kind of school when you graduate with, if you have one of their rings on your finger, that just opens doors for you. And I was in the corporate communication program. It was a doctorate program. You know, if I had had the right discipline, right calling, whatever, I should have been Dr. Ferris a long time ago. I'm not. I later got my PhD in Donnie Iris, but that's another story. Maybe Slayer too. But the whole time I was in this corporate communication program, all I could think about was the music I was listening to. All I could think about was stuff I wanted to write about. All I could think about was music magazines I was writing. All I could think about was how, as an undergraduate, I had been marginally involved in the college paper, but not super involved. I always just did a little bit of stuff. But when I left to do one of my internships, I was next in line to be the editor of the college paper. And it just didn't feel like a good fit at the time. I was like, no, whatever's happening at school, I want to get out. It's just, I don't feel like I'm going in the right direction. So I graduated. Later, I went to grad school in this corporate communication program. All I could think about was music and writing about music. Didn't know how I would ever get there, but I used to look at Alternative Press, which was then at the time maybe the number 4 or 5 music magazine in the USA, and think like, how could I get there? How could I get there? And I used to wish, like, man, I wish I would have done more as an undergraduate. I wish I would have written about music. But I didn't. So now I'm here and I'm stuck. So long story short, I wound up dropping out of that program, tried to do some other things, and on a real kind of weird bounce of fate, twist and turn, I wound up back in grad school, and I wound up in charge of the school paper as a graduate assistant. And then I was like, well, here I have like a school paper like at my fingertips. We need content. This is a good opportunity to start writing some record reviews. So when I started writing record reviews, and I realized that there was this band we liked called Grand Buffet, and maybe I could interview them, it all just started falling into place. I was able to interview Wolfpack. I was able to interview Sound of Urchin. I was able to write about Bloodhound Gang. And that didn't feel like beating my head against the wall. That felt like I was going somewhere. That felt like I had annihilated the wall, and now I was running free.
Yeah.
And Fun Loving Criminals were a big part of that. When the second album came out, I was like, man, this album is just so much more interesting to me than anything I'm supposed to be doing at the library right now.
That's awesome.
So I just heard something out there calling my name. I was like, no, I don't care what I got going out here. I'm going to go follow that shit.
Yeah. So, you're kind of cutting your teeth there, working at the paper in your writing. And it's just kind of flowing out. Do you think at that time, did you have a voice at that point? Or like, have you ever gone back and reread any of that early stuff and kind of seen where?
No, man, I try not to look at my early stuff too much.
Yeah.
As a writer, I think at the time I was a lot like a jazz musician. I was doing a lot of stuff that was technically correct, but like, Jesus Christ, will you just turn it down? Like, stop doing all the fancy shit, get to the point, play the hook.
Yeah.
Like I'm a real, as a grammarian, like I have a real strong technical background in grammar, and I can do a lot of shit that, again, is technically correct. But nobody wants to sit down and read this long, windy, like, Now I'm much more about like, write me a 4-word sentence. Somebody does something, period. Billy likes to drink soda, period. Okay, that's a clear sentence. That's good communication. But as a young kid, I was just about like riffing and trying to do like the Yngwie Malmsteen equivalent of like English composition.
That's awesome.
And that doesn't work for the writer. It made me feel good at the time, but... And whenever you find yourself thinking, I am so awesome, I'm doing this shit right and nobody understands it, you probably need to do a little bit of self-reflection.
Yeah, totally. So you have this pipe dream or seeming at the time, a pipe dream of working for Alternative Press, but then that happens. What was your first submission with them?
Man, I had submitted a bunch of stuff to them. I'd been knocking on their door for a couple of years, and I couldn't get them to say boo to me. I was just trying and sending a new resume, sending a new cover letter. Could never get any kind of response. So I just tried for like 2 years. And finally, I reached a point where I was working as a newspaper writer. I was living in Maryland at the time. And I was just really broke at that point. The music magazine that I had been working for had folded. So I went from having two badly paying writing jobs to having just one badly paying writing job. And I was broke, and I was sitting there with a stack of bills, and a lot of those were music magazine subscription renewal notices. And I was just looking at them, and I was like, you know what? If it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. I've been busting my ass for like 2 years, relentlessly trying to get in. I've been doing some decent work. I can't even get them to say hi. So I'm done. I'm not going to renew these. This is the end. I guess I had a decent run, whatever. I'm going to have to find something else to do. I'll just be a straight news writer. And like 2 hours later, I got I forget if it was a call or an email, but they reached out like, hey, you want to fly to Iowa and interview Slipknot? Like, what? I don't know where this came from or why, but I will take it.
Yeah.
So it was one of those kind of classic situations where you're just beating your head against the door until you're like unconscious, and then all of a sudden 1 minute you wake up and you're inside. Like, how'd I get in here? I don't know. My head hurts though.
That's awesome. What year was that?
That was 2002. Okay. So yeah, I've been writing for what is now the country's #2 music magazine off and on for like going on 20 years, like 18 years at this point.
That's amazing. If you dream it, you can be it, man. It's great.
And here's what my motivation was. Like probably 6 years before that, I bought a Rolling Stone, bought an issue of it, and yeah, this had happened to me constantly through my life. I would pick up a music magazine that I paid good money for. They would run a review of something that sounded interesting to me, so I would go out and buy it when you had to spend money for a cassette, when you had to spend like $18, $20 for a CD. So you invest your hard-earned money in it's shitty. It doesn't sound like they said it was, and it's not good the way they said it was. And they said it sounded like REM, but it doesn't sound like REM. It sucks. And I bought an issue of Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone said that the Bullworth soundtrack was one of the finest rap albums of the decade. Mm-hmm. So I went out and I bought it, and I listened to it, and it was, to put it mildly, not one of the finest rap albums of the decade or that year or anything. All respect to Ghetto Superstar.
I was just going to say it's one track. It is one track.
Yeah. So at that point, I was like, you know what? If these people at Rolling Stone do such a bad job, I think, given the opportunity, I could do at least as poorly as they do. So that became like a driving idea for 6 years. Like, man, if these dummies do it, I'm going to get in the game. I'm going to get a piece of this shit too. Maybe I can even do it better, but there's no way I will do it worse.
Yeah. And then you end up writing.
That's an attitude too. I think everybody. All right, go ahead.
Oh no, you go right ahead. Go ahead.
That's just, as somebody who now is a teacher and I do some motivational writing, that's an attitude you need to have. Somebody out there is doing your dream job. Somebody's going to interview the Bloodhound Gang. Somebody's going to track down Jimmy Pop and do a book. Jimmy Pop, I want to do your book with you. Someone's going to do it. Might as well be you. Stuff tends to go to people who want it worst, not who's the most qualified, not who's the most professional, not who should do it. How bad do you want it? So someone's going to do it. Might as well be you.
I love it. And you, so you just, that's another thing you put out in the air. You ended up writing for Rolling Stone as well. So
a little bit.
So I got to think this Jimmy Pop book's going to work. Like, we can make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I got questions. I got concerns. No one's going to do it as well as I am, Jimmy. Yeah. I'm here for you.
Yeah, we'll set that up. We'll get that set up. We're putting that out right now because I know, Jim is a Philly guy, so he's got to listen to this podcast. So
yeah, please. Hey, real quickly, here's my Philadelphia cred. #1, of course, Bloodhound Gang, one of the best bands ever. We can agree on that, right?
100%.
If you think we're wrong, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
Number 2, I know who Tommy Conwell is. Philadelphia cred, number 2.
Dude, I was going to say, I was reading, so I was doing some research on this, and I was reading the write-up of the Donnie Iris book, and when you name dropped Tommy Conwell, I was like, holy shit, he knows this thing.
Number 3, I know who McRad and Chuck Treese. I know who they are.
Awesome.
Number 4, Silver Linings Playbook. I don't know if that counts, but I'm listing it. And number 5, this is interesting. I just figured this out. I was planning on just saying I saw Jane's Addiction there in 1997. Oh. But as part of my prep for this, I thought, you know what? I'll be precise. I'll see exactly when it was. We are talking, today is November 9th, 2020, right?
Yeah.
I saw Jane's Addiction on the Relapse tour with Flea in Philadelphia on November 10th. 1997.
Whoa! Synergy.
So, if you incorporate leap day or whatever.
We're right on it.
Yeah, so we're right on it. So that's my Philadelphia cred.
I am impressed now, completely blown away that you know Chuck Treese. I actually, one night at a jam spot in the city, this place called the Media Bureau, got to play one of my original songs with Chuck playing bass. So
no shit.
Yeah. It was it's one of my defining moments.
Wow. Yeah. McRad is one of those bands, being a hardcore devotee, aficionado, amateur historian. McRad is one of those bands that is not necessarily one of the varsity names in the evolution of skate punk, skate rock, whatever you want to call it, but they should be.
Yeah.
They should be. And, also hardcore was very much generally a lily white fucking thing for most of the time. So, they had a lot of distinctions. They should be bigger.
100% agree. Little Chuck Treese trivia. Do you know that he played bass on River of Dreams by Billy Joel?
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
No, get out of here.
I'm serious. So I was reading an article with him. This is go back 10, 15 years now, I guess. But he was talking about how he played bass on that track, and he was at an amusement park with his kid, and the song came on, and he was like, that's me playing bass. And his kid was like, so?
Well, that's how it is. That's how it is, man. My kids are both teenagers now. They're 14, 17. And, up until recently, they could give a shit what I do and what I've done with my life. But the younger one, talking to her, every day, it's a little bit more like talking to my brother. She is thoroughly one of us.
Awesome.
Same kind of, she's a big Sublime fan, that kind of thing. One of her friends just discovered who Slayer is and got into them. So guess whose stock just went up 500%.
I was just going to say, your dad's stock just hit the fucking charts, man.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, Dad is somebody.
That's awesome.
But that's it. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter who you are. If you're a dad, your shit does not matter.
So, speaking of Slayer, how did the Slayer book come about? Just to catch people up who are listening, you wrote the Rain and Blood 33 1/3 book. Was that something you pitched? Was that something that was pitched to you to cover, or?
No, that was something that I felt oddly moved to do. Again, I exist in the world as DX Ferris, D like David, X like X-ray, just because that makes me easy to find on the internet. When I started really writing, the internet was new, but if you did a search for David Ferris, there would be an engineer in Michigan or some tech journalist in California. So I picked up an old high school nickname, DX, and that just kind of sent me on my way with my branding, as we call it now. But friends and family generally call me Ferris. I am an Ohio Society of Professional Journalists Reporter of the Year, so I'm decent at doing hard news reporting. I'm a communicator, I'm a writer, I'm a publisher, I'm a cartoonist. Some of the kids might call me a maker, I suppose. But I've written about 9 books. Depends how you want to count them. Genres range from motivational literature to cartoons. But I made my name as a music journalist. I'd been writing for Alternative Press off and on, doing some work for them for a few years. At the time, around 2006, 2007, I was a working music journalist writing for them. I don't think I'd been in Rolling Stone yet. That might have been possible. But I always liked that series of books, the 33 and a third series. And what that is they're that little series of, now it's a big series. It's a series of pocket-sized books that are all inspired by or based on a classic album. So it covers the whole canon of classic rock albums, everything from the Beach Boys to the Beastie Boys, Radiohead to J Dilla, kind of covers anything that is, that has found some kind of cultural cachet or significance to it. In recent years, it's become more hip-hop friendly, obviously, if you're going to go into J Dilla. But there are, I think, over 150 at this point, and I was now one of the relatively early ones. My book was number 66 in the series. So that's just something that I wanted to do. I was a metal guy from way back. When I go back and I look at my college notebooks, like I wasn't listening to a lot of metal in the 90s. The Bloodhound Gang re-engaged me in music in a way that I had not been for a couple of years. But when I look back through my old notebooks and planners, I was never far away from Slayer. Even when I was studying chem or World Lit 101 in college and I wasn't listening to At the Gates at the time, I was still making rankings of Slayer albums. And I don't think I've ever sat down with a pen in my hand and not made a pentagram, since 8th grade. So, I was just looking at the 33 and a third series, seeing what was there and what was not there. And me and my brother were talking and he was like, you should write one about Paul's Boutique. That would be cool. That would be awesome. I was like, yeah, I should. That would be awesome to write a Paul's Boutique 33 and a third book. And then some dude wrote one and it was good. So I couldn't even be salty about it.
No.
And that dude today is a good friend of mine, Dan Leroy. But Paul's Boutique was taken at that point, but I still wanted to write one of those. So I thought, well, what has the series not covered? What is there to cover still? Metal. They haven't done a metal one. And if you're going to take a serious look at any one metal album, it should be Slayer's Rain in Blood. Because number one, it rules ass. Number two, rules ass. Number three, fucking Slayer. Number four, rules ass. But beyond that, it was produced by Rick Rubin. It was his first real rock record. And Rick Rubin now has worked with something like 10% of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, which is a lot more than Phil Spector worked with. But at the time, he was just some long-haired New York rap dude. It was engineered by Andy Wallace, who mixed Nirvana's Nevermind, produced Jeff Buckley's Grace, mixed Guns N' Roses' Chinese Democracy. He's like the number one name in album mixing. So if you're going to look at any serious, or if you're going to look at any metal album seriously, Rain and Blood, I thought would be a good one to do. And somehow they agreed with me.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So, you mentioned that your brother tipped you towards trying to write Paul's Boutique. He tipped me to ask you to tell me about trying to talk to Rick Rubin for this book.
Well, I sort of did. I sort of didn't. Like, I interviewed him, but Rick is like so busy. He doesn't stop moving and come down to earth like much. So he was a big part of the book, and he was not a big part of the book at the same time.
Yeah. Like,
his approval and him liking the idea of the book was integral in getting the book done. He liked the idea of his metal album being part of this, again, like canon documentation of things like of albums by The Who and the Beastie Boys and Dusty Springfield and all these classic records. He really liked the idea of Slayer being correctly included as part of that list of great artists. So he liked the idea, and he said, yeah, I think you should do it. And the band listened to him, and the band agreed. So that was good. And he said he would talk to me for the album, and that was good too. But it was really, really, really hard to pin him down.
Yeah.
So I wound up just sending initially I wound up sending a lot of questions to his publicist. And he would get back to me with like yeses and nos. I'd be like, can you confirm this or deny that? Or was it A or B, or was it B or C, or is this true? And what I started noticing was I would get these really, really super fast responses typed in kind of like all lowercase letters. And this was 2007, before texting was really a thing. There were like sidekicks. You remember those?
Yeah.
Like some people had sidekicks, like the real people that were road dogs, the people that lived out there and were like hardcore, like either tech people or people that just lived out on the road, going from warped tour stop to warped tour stop. Those were the only people that really texted at the time. But I started getting some of Ruben's responses, and I would send him like a series of yes/no questions. But I would notice that some of those had like I said, longer answers attached to them, but just typed really kind of quickly with a couple typos. And one morning I was like I sent some, and they came back 20 minutes later. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I sent Rick Rubin's publicist questions, and she had to get them to him. And here are answers to me 20 minutes later. What happened? How does this work? And I realized, like, holy shit, I think Rick Rubin is sitting in the studio doing whatever he's doing with one of those sidekick things strapped to his hip for vital communication in the Columbia Records business empire. But he'll stop to do what he's he'll stop what he's doing to answer questions about Slayer history from 1986. It's like, oh, okay. I got this. So that kind of gave me like a window, like how to get to him, like by carefully crafting like very precise, very exact questions. I could pull like 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences out of him at the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
So like, yeah, I didn't get to like talk to him, but I was able to get him to cough up his thoughts, take the time, parse them quickly, and get them to me. So yeah, awesome. In addition to talking to the whole band, I talked to Andy Wallace, the late great Jeff Hanneman before he passed. I was able to get everybody's input on how they made the record.
That's great. So that comes out. Does that kind of does that bump your stock as a writer? Like, does that open doors? Or did anybody else reach out to you and say, "Hey, can you do us?" Like.
Yeah, I mean, people mention it like every now and then. I think that definitely like I've been eating lunch on that book for a long time. Part of what I realized with that, I'm not complaining, but when I get checks for that book, they're beer money. They're nice. I appreciate it. But that book also later convinced me of the power of independent media, which is one of the things I'm real evangelical about. I publish my own books for the most part, and the ones that I publish myself, I make a shitload more money on than the ones done with a private press. I mean, the 33 1/3 series is published by a press called Bloomsbury. So technically, I'm on the same label as Neil Gaiman.
Awesome.
But the checks that I get from that publishing house, not so impressive. Not really, not all the time. I get a shit ton more. Sorry, am I allowed to curse?
Absolutely.
It's a little late to ask this.
Oh, absolutely.
But I get a lot more money out of the books that I published myself. But that was a real good learning lesson. I mean, you got to start somewhere. So after spending a whole life studying people making major label deals and what it took to actually get a deal and owning the masters and learning hard lessons about that kind of stuff, I was in a situation to kind of make that choice myself. And 9 times out of 10, I will go indie.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I would say this is, please forgive me this horrible segue. I'm like the king of making horrible segues, but I would say that's really good advice. And speaking of good advice, you have a good advice series. um, Tell me a little bit about how this came about, like how this kind of inspirational, motivational writing came about. Because it's some really phenomenal stuff. It's great.
Man, thank you. Yeah, I have a growing franchise of books called Good Advice from ... And what they are is they are books that do a serious look at popular culture. The first two in the series are about Goodfellas and professional writing. The professional writing one I wrote with my dude Darren Paltrowitz, who is a prime mover on that one. And they just take a look at things that people love, people that have, when you like something like a movie or pro wrestling, it's something you come back to every week, 2 times a week, 5 times a week. And it's not for nothing, it's something that you love. So since you love that kind of thing, what kind of lessons can you learn from it? My brother, you've heard some stories about our dad. Our dad was a lot like Indiana Jones's dad, Sean Connery, R.I.P. In Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones has this kind of argument with his dad where he says, "You were a terrible dad." And Sean Connery, again, who recently passed, looks at Indiana Jones and says, "I was a wonderful father." And Indiana Jones doesn't even know how to respond to that. It's such a preposterous claim by his dad, who was hands off entirely. But he was now claiming that he was a good father. So Indiana Jones's dad says, "I was a great father. I was never after you to wash your ears or be home or ask what you were doing. I let you do what you wanted to do." Like, holy shit, that was my dad. That was dad. So I grew up with that kind of guy. So my dad let me find my own way. But on the other hand, he was not a real hands-on parent. He wasn't one saying, "This is how the world works. This is how you should do. You should always look a man in the eye, shake his hand. This is how you negotiate." I had to pick up stuff like that from other teachers. And I got a lot of that from movies, frankly, from The Godfather, from Goodfellas. And that was really the genesis of Goodfellas. That was a movie I've watched a zillion times, something that I always took something new away from and something that I always learned from. And I just sat down one day and I started making a list of all the positive, that's an important thing, positive life lessons that you can learn from a movie like Goodfellas.
That's great. So so you started with Goodfellas and you moved to professional wrestling. You said this is an ongoing series. Do you have any others that you tried that did not work, or do you?
No, I have, like, right now I'm backed up. Like I could never have another idea and just write the stuff that I want to write and probably work for another 10 years. But unfortunately, I have other things I got to do to pay the bills, provide for my kids. But I have one that I would love to write right now that I just don't have the time for. 2 of my friends are writing ones. We have a manuscript for one. I wish I could tell you about them. Hopefully I'll be able to at some time in the future. But yeah, just people have really kind of warmed up to the idea of taking entertainment that you love and learning what you can learn from it.
Yeah.
Pro wrestling is not a simple business. It's a very sophisticated, very difficult business. What is harder than pro wrestling? You got to take a beating and then still be able to stand up and speak articulately in a dramatic fashion. That's hard.
Yeah. And not just that. I mean, like the lives of wrestlers, I feel like there's been a little more exposure into what they go through. But like a road wrestler is without a doubt one of the most kind of hardworking, get up, go, do everything yourself kind of guys out there. Like there is a lot to learn in that area, which is why when I saw that you were putting that book out, like I was like, dude, that totally makes sense. Like that is the perfect.
Every wrestler is a Rocky story, and worse. I mean, Rocky got beat up in one fight. I mean, the shit you got to do to live through one single like wrestling prep session is ridiculous. 500 Hindu squats on top of cardio. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Rocky didn't have to do that.
Yeah. And then DDP wrote a foreword for that book. You and I will add this to your list of things, are both practitioners of DDP yoga.
That's my Jawn.
That is my Jawn. That's a good Jawn. I tell you what, it completely fixed my back. I've fallen off. I haven't done it in a while, but my girlfriend still daily is hitting the stretches and all. And but what a phenomenal story that guy has,
Yeah, absolutely. I've hurt my back a couple times over the years, and I learned the hard way that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And ironically, the more you push yourself and the more you work on your back and the more you're hard on your back, the better it feels. You really get into trouble. You really get those body aches when you take it too easy and you just sit around and wait for yourself to get better.
Yeah, 100%. So you kind of touched upon or talked about this a little earlier, but you wrote a book with Donnie Iris. Yeah, man, nice diamond cutter. Very nice diamond cutter. You wrote a book with Donnie Iris, who is a Pittsburgh legend. I'm not sure how many people outside of Pittsburgh know of him. Tell everyone a little bit about Donnie Iris and how that book came about.
Donnie Iris is the classic rock king of Pittsburgh. He's one of those guys like Tommy Conwell that, they can sell all the tickets to all the shows locally, but 3 hours outside of Philadelphia, 3 hours outside of Pittsburgh, people don't necessarily know who Donnie Iris is. And everybody has a place like that, but Donnie is unique among those kind of niche artists in that he and his creative partner and the people they've worked with have really reached the depths, or not the depths, some of them the depths, but the heights of the music industry as well. His creative partner has written songs for Santana. He's the only guy that wrote an outside song for Bon Jovi. The only Bon Jovi song that Bon Jovi did not have a handwriting was by Mark Avsek, Donnie Iris' creative partner. So those guys are not only local icons, but they've had a really interesting run as musicians. They were signed to the great Philly soul label. I'm drawing a blank. Help me out here.
It's right. I can. Oh my God, I'm gonna get kicked out of the city.
Yeah, but they went to his first band, the Jaggers, went to Philly and recorded with Gamble and Huff.
Okay, yeah,
Gamble Records. They were there. He had a #1 hit with the Jaggers before. They were around for some really interesting times, and I was aware of some of that stuff, and nobody was documenting it. So I thought somebody should, and I thought that should be me. And after 7 years of nagging those guys, they reluctantly agreed and let me write the book with them.
Wow, 7 years. So now is that 7 years full court press, or is that just like, it's been a few months, let me hit them up and see if they're ready now?
It was kind of like that. Like I knew of them, and I was his I'm trying to think how to tell the story as quickly as possible. I was aware of those guys, and I looked for any excuse possible to talk to his creative partner, Mark Avsek. And eventually I wrote what was probably the first ever full profile of that guy, like just a big cover story about him, bringing his life's work to the attention of people, saying, this is, when you say Donnie Iris, you're probably actually talking about Mark Avsek as well. So I wrote that story, and he liked it. So I would, like, once or twice a year go back to him and say, hey, we should do a book, dude. And he would go, no. So I'd wait a year, come back, hey, we should do a book. Yeah, maybe. Let's talk about it. No. Come back a year later. Hey, remember we talked about that thing? Here's why you should do it. Yeah, maybe. No. So just for 7 years of we should, no, we should, maybe, we should, no. Eventually I broke him down.
Yeah.
And we did it.
Were you shocked when he finally gave in that, oh my God, this is really happening?
Yeah. It was a surprise, but I had been working for it. So we were able to make it happen.
Yeah. And then, yet another, like, a very thick book. on something that very few people know about, but very dense, a lot of great information in there. And it's it's just crazy. The idea of local legends, like you said, like Donnie Iris, like Tommy Conwell, like some of the guys.
Bloodhound Gang?
Like the Bloodhound Gang.
Not local. Those guys, legit legends.
Especially in Germany and in Russia, where they're not allowed anymore. Did you hear that story, by the way? That they got kicked out of Russia. Evil Jared.
Oh, was it because of the uniform?
No, Evil Jared wiped his ass with the Russian flag. It was almost an international incident by some guys.
I, for one, welcome our new Kremlin overlords.
But no, it's a crazy story that I think is very interesting in examining those kind of local legends, those people who are really huge in their own right, in their own pond, which is something I think you did phenomenally in that book, showcasing.
Yeah, my question for everything I write, and this is where the not readily apparent overlap is between a Slayer book and between motivational writing. My question for people is never like, what's that like? What's it like being a rock star? What's it like being a thrash god? Is that awesome?
Yeah.
Like, we all have a pretty accurate idea what backstage 2:00 in the morning on a Friday is like. We all know that. That doesn't change a lot if you're David Bowie or Slayer or, Pennsylvania Boys Done Well, Poison. We know what that's like. So to say what's that like is kind of a useless question. Everybody says the same stuff. My question is, how did you do that? Because that's what I really want to know. You're Slayer. Well, you're a thrash metal band from LA. How did you wind up working with the king of New York hip hop, Rick Rubin? So if you ask how instead of what's that like, say like, how'd you do that? That opens up the doors. It gets people talking. That explores how it happened. So, Donnie Iris, if you had your single #1 song in 1967, but it's 2017 and you're still a brand name in Pittsburgh, well, how do you keep yourself afloat as a working artist for 50 years? That's not a question you hear asked every day. And the story is not the kind of thing you read about every time you pick up a rock book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic to be able to kind of understand and document these things for people to kind of learn from. So it is almost like an advice book continuation. Especially asking how, like it is life lessons. You are a chronicler of life lessons, essentially, but with a music kind of focus on it. Oh, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, like, if you look at my books, there's a lot of disparate stuff in there, but I think by the time I'm done with number 10 of 10, I think you'll see a pretty clear pattern in there. I think eventually you're going to see how those form not just random points, but are in fact a big connected circle.
Yeah. So what are you, I know you have a chest full of ideas and all. Is there anything you're working on currently that's kind of the main focus, or are you just still kind of working here and there on different ideas?
Man, I have a list of 16 secret evil plans.
Okay.
That are in various states of completion. I can't talk about any of those right now. The one creative thing I'm doing right now is, among other things, I'm a cartoonist. I religiously was able to put out my comic strip at least twice a week, often very much more, over 9.25 years. And then when this global pandemic hit, that has thrown my schedule for a loop a little bit.
Yeah.
So what I'm kind of rushing to do is, year number 10, which we're in right now, was always going to be my final year of the strip anyway. But now I'm trying to finish up and hit number 1,000 before Christmas hits. So that's something that I'm rushing to do right now. And then once that's done, I can launch a podcast. I can start writing a couple of the books that I want to do. none of which I can talk about right now. But thanks for asking.
Sure. Well, for the people listening, that comic strip is called Suburban Metal Dad, and aptly titled. We would call that autobiographical, right?
No, it's fiction. Fiction, especially if my wife's reading this or watching. Fiction.
Great. All right. At this time, if you are prepared, I would like to put you through what we affectionately know as the Jauntlet. These are 2 segments, One Hit Wonders and the Top 10 Countdown.
Lay it on me.
Are you prepared for the One Hit Wonders? Number 1, One Hit Wonder, Hagar or Roth?
What the fuck kind of question is that?
You'd be surprised. So I've had somebody say Hagar, and it threw me for a loop. I was confused.
People are weird, man. People are weird. Hey, another spectacularly captivating world premiere video. You can't take your eyes off of it, and you can only see it here. Has Sammy Hagar ever done anything close to that?
Not at all. Look, I said this a few weeks ago when we were kind of memorializing Eddie Van Halen, but like Sammy is a great writer, and I don't mean to take away from him when I say that it is so easy to say that the answer to that is David Lee Roth. I actually, the Hagar stuff has kind of grown on me. I used to just kind of, it was like holy water to me. Like I was like, get it away. It's going to burn me. But it's really grown on me.
But it's 2 different bands, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just not the same thing.
I just heard that, during the time, that they were looking to replace Dave, that, Patti Smith from Scandal was almost the lead singer of Van Halen, but she turned it down.
Yeah. She didn't want, if they were going to continue calling it Van Halen, she didn't want to be part of that.
That is that's like a whole other world. I want to live in that world where that existed, even if just for an album,
Yeah, for real. Apparently, other people that were invited to, at least audition to be Van Halen lead singers at some point were included Australia's Jimmy Barnes, the guy from the INXS song featured on the Lost Boys soundtrack, Good Time.
Okay.
So the next time you hear that, which I've been rocking lately, it's a jam, or John, might say.
Yeah, I was going to say, please be on brand.
he could have been in the mix as well, apparently.
That's crazy.
So yeah, but that's a fundamentally ignorant question, Nate. Next.
Okay, next one. Biggie or Pac?
I'm not. I just this weekend was watching the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. In all respect to both of those dudes, I'm just not involved or invested in either of them. If I had to choose one, I'm a big fan of Diddy from Made.
Yes.
And his acting work. So out of respect for that, I'm just going to leave it there. Neither one of those really my Jawn.
Okay.
All respect. I'm an Irish white guy in the suburbs. My hip hop cred does not matter here.
Number 3, Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
What do you think? Nirvana all the way.
Yeah.
I can never find it. It might have been a tweet. It might have been an actual article at some point. And I like the early Pearl Jam as much as anybody does. We all do. But somebody once wrote, and I wish I could remember who it was. Somebody said that it is like Pearl Jam at a certain point decided they were going to become the Who, but they skipped the part where they wrote all the great songs. So Pearl Jam were kind of on this forefront of artists that is now a full-on pandemic that could kind of summon a vibe, but not really write any hooks. And I don't like that, man. Give me some classic rock. Give me some hooks. Nirvana was everything that I loved. Punk, classic rock, all that stuff, just spit shine to perfection. And I'm one of those guys who never did get over Kurt Cobain's death. I got bummed. I missed seeing the Beastie Boys on Lollapalooza the next year because I just wasn't into it. I was like, well, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to be sad that Kurt's dead.
Wow.
Which in retrospect might have been a mistake, but that's I was feeling at the time.
Yeah. Number 4, which is probably one of the oldest popular music questions of the rock era: Beatles or the Stones?
I'll respect, again, this is just me. I don't get the Stones.
No?
I don't get them. I never did. Nothing about them ever really made me want to hear more, except Play with Fire. And as far as I can tell, there's not more that sounds like that.
Okay.
I mean, they're great, they're iconic, but just never important to me, never spoke to me.
They're another one who late in life, there's like a lot of bands that I just didn't understand. And then like one day, like a song came on and I'm like, all right, I get behind this. The Stones are one. And Bruce Springsteen's another. I hated Bruce Springsteen for the majority of my life. And
well, you're a Philly guy.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, these weird bands. And now like I listen to the Stones more than I listen to the Beatles. And I don't know when that happened or how it happened.
Well, there's like a 50-year back catalog of stuff that has not been all played to death on classic rock radio.
Yeah, that's true.
Normally, like when I write a book, I sit down and I write it, and that's just the end of it. I did start writing a book called Buck the Beatles that was all about why nobody ever needed to hear anything about the Beatles ever again. Because, I mean, they're just this kind of big, like, monolith. Like, the Beatles are there, and it's been a long time since anybody said anything meaningful about that band. Like,
yeah.
Okay, tell me something new about Paul McCartney and John Lennon. You can't. It's been done. The music's there. It's awesome. What else is there?
Yeah.
You know?
That makes sense.
Yeah, Beatles guy. I'm a Beatles guy.
Okay. The side note to that one, who was your favorite Beatle?
You know, again, I had a monolithic appreciation of the Beatles, you know, never at the height of my fandom that I really care about their inner workings. So, like, I don't have a real sense of, I know who George Harrison is versus who Ringo was and the Wilburys and what is life and all that shit. But I never felt any kind of important distinction between, you know, John and Paul. You know, the way my mind works is I want to know, like, what the synergy was. You know, if I don't care about them that much. You know, something about Slayer made me want to really investigate Kerry King's role versus Jeff Hanneman's. But the Beatles, I think we have the music. That's all I need to know.
I love it. That's a good answer. It's a good answer. This is the regular final one-hit wonder. Prince or MJ?
Prince, you know, among other things, as far as we know, we never did anything that Michael allegedly did. But Prince is one of those guys that, you know, I think is going to be opening up to me for the rest of my life. You know, I can never front like I was a card-carrying fan. You know, I cared enough to track down the Black Album and then realize why the Black Album was never released.
Yeah.
Not for nothing. But yeah, I mean, he's the whole thing. You know, I think people are going to be writing books about him for a long, long time, and that's a guy that deserves it.
And like I said, that's usually the last one. But you, being someone who I know can answer this, because a lot of guests can't, and I'm pretty sure you have a pretty good opinion on this, I'm going to add one more one-hit wonder, and that is, are you a Use Your Illusion 1 or Use Your Illusion 2 kind of guy?
That's tough, man. That is a hard question. The answer could change from day to day. Desert Island, I would probably go with 1. There are more songs that I like on 1. 1 has more songs, unquestionably. But, and this is a big but, 2 has maybe 4 good tunes, but among those tunes are Estranged and You Could Be Mine, which are the evolutionary pinnacle apotheosis of the Guns N' Roses thing. So even though the album is not as good, arguably the 2 best Guns N' Roses songs are on that. You know, as many people have before, you know, I've often set out to try to mix a perfect album between the 2, and I don't know if that can be done. I've never seen a satisfactory answer. But once while I was pondering that, it occurred to me that maybe the real version of Use Your Illusion 3 or 1.5, whatever you want to call it, maybe the ultimate expression of Use Your Illusion would be to strip out all the good songs and include all the worst songs. And maybe that's where the real third Use Your Illusion album lies.
And it'd be interesting because it would be like separating the wheat from the chaff. So maybe those songs that are lesser become elevated in the new album lineup. I actually put it together because I bet it would probably be a banger of an album.
Yeah, so I mean, this is some high next level theoretical shit, but one day I'll work on that when the planets align.
Awesome. All right, so that's the one hit wonders. The next one is the top 10 countdown. These are just personal choices of your own. Like I said, I use Jawn interchangeably. It can mean anything you want it to be. It can be music. It can be anything.
We'll do the speed round. I'll shut up here.
Number one, First Jawn.
First Jawn, I think Batman was the first thing that really got my attention. You know, in Batman, there was everything. There was costumes, there was drama, there was music, Nelson Riddle theme song, there was violence. It was all there, man. Batman.
Yeah, that show's incredible. That show and the Monkees that was on at the same time are like two shows that I can literally put on right now, and I feel like it can go toe to toe with any show that's on TV right now. Like those two shows from the same era are absolutely brilliant. Good answer. Number two, what is your current Jawn? What are you getting into right now?
Man, the older I get, I'm not that actively into music like I used to. You know, I'm not out there living it, so it doesn't really remind me of anything. I'm big into soundtrack music. So like my brother, like we just had an email exchange. He was like, you know, Max Richter, he's this guy that did music for the Leftovers. Like, yeah, that's been my dude for like several years now. He was like, yeah, you would say that. Like, no, really. So yeah, instrumental stuff. Just stuff like the Cloud Atlas soundtrack. That's one of.
Oh my God, that is a brilliant piece of work right there. Both movie and soundtrack, like that whole thing.
Yeah, that's what kind of like made me switch gears permanently from pop music to soundtrack type music. Okay. So that, like the Daredevil soundtrack by John Paisano. I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name. Really good stuff. Nicholas Bertel, really good stuff from If Beale Street Could Talk, soundtrack to that. I'm a Coltrane guy, a lot of jazz. But the older I get, I just want simple, melodic, long form stuff that is evocative but not distracting.
Okay.
Soundtrack music. That's my Jawn.
Number three, what was your first concert?
First concert was either Donnie Iris and the Cruisers or possibly John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. Okay. The band behind the soundtrack for Eddie and the Cruisers. So either way, the Cruisers.
The Cruisers. Number four, what was the last concert you were at?
Last concert I went to, I saw the Misfits reunion in Chicago at Riot Fest with 40,000 people in a general admission setting, watching this historic concert take place at night under an almost full orange moon.
Wow.
With everybody going crazy, and it was this insane platonic ideal of everything I ever wanted from a concert. Everybody there screaming every single word, combined with a Game of Thrones battlefield type experience. I was in roughly the equivalent of the fifth row, and it was just a physical and mental and historic and all encompassing. Everything I ever wanted at a concert and normally did not get from a concert. And I kind of retired from concerts after that. Now, since then, I went to see Kristen Hirsch from Throwing Muses. I went to see her play an acoustic set in a church. I felt that was worth making an excuse for.
Yeah.
And it wasn't religious music. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But she was playing little small thing, and I got to sit on a couch 2 feet away from her and just watch her play. Cool. I'll make an exception for that. And I took my younger kid to see the 1975, but that doesn't really count.
All right. All right. So that's last concert. Number 5, what has been in your career of live music your favorite concert?
Man, the Misfits, like I just said, was everything I ever wanted in a concert. I saw Slayer play on the South of Heaven tour, their third album. I saw them play in a roller rink that held maybe 600, 800 people. I'm pretty sure the amount of people packed in was closer to 2,000, maybe 3. And it was them at the absolute height of their powers playing a roller rink. And that was another one, just everything you could want from a concert. It was a physical, like rugby game of a concert. It was loud, everybody screaming every word, moshing. It was so dense you could like pick up your feet and you wouldn't fall over because you were just pressed in by so many people. And after that, not a lot of shows really impressed me.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. I know you say you're retired from it, but number 6, who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? They can be alive and or dead.
Oh, man, I think about this a lot. I have a list of bands that I could go see if I time traveled. If I had to pick one, depending on what day you catch me, I'd probably go David Lee Roth solo. I had tickets to the Eat 'Em and Smile tour, but my dad grew up in the inner city. He never had to really drive, never really had opportunities to drive. So he was not a confident driver. And if the road was not clean, he didn't want to drive on it. So it snowed very lightly that night that historic David Lee Roth concert took place in Pittsburgh. And he just didn't want to go, so we didn't go. But he took me to a lot of other shows, so I can't be salty about that.
Right on.
But it would have been nice.
Number 7, I feel like you'll have a good one for this. Name an unappreciated Jawn, something you wish had more shine to it.
Man, well, we already talked about Fun Loving Criminals. We already talked about the Bloodhound Gang. We know. We know what's up. It's kind of nice. It's funny. Remember we saw them, one of the times we saw them in Metropole around 2000. I think the first time we saw them on that tour. We were coming out and I was like, man, I wish they would do shows where it was like $100 a ticket and we didn't have to share them with all these assholes.
Yeah.
And that since has become like the trend, okay, we'll do a show where like tickets are $250 and only the hardcore people are coming to see them.
Yeah.
But there's a band I love called Sound of Urchin that I saw opening up for Two Skinny Jays initially, the late great Two Skinny Jays. Sound of Urchin. They do it all. They do poignant rock. They rock like hell. They're fun. Guitar player is a big Zappa fan, so he can rip out some real solos that are both musical and moving. Anything you like about rock and roll, they do it well. Sound of Urchin.
All right. I will definitely have to check them out.
You would like them. You dig them the most, baby.
I don't doubt it. Top 10, number 8. What is your favorite album? I know it's such a hard choice, but.
Man, that's tough. I wrote a book about Slayer's Rain and Blood. So that's a metric that indicates maybe that might be my favorite. I don't know. I might go, I could probably karaoke Pink Floyd's The Wall. But I'm a white guy of a certain age, so I think like there are some union regulations that say I have to be into those dudes, Yeah. Maybe Dark Side of the Moon. That could be just like a perfect sonic artifact. Okay. I know those are lame ones, but I mean, not for nothing have they sold that many copies and been that popular that long.
Yeah. I had mentioned earlier about James telling me to ask about Rick Rubin. He also said that your favorite Pink Floyd stuff is everything post Roger Waters, which is weird, but I kid. He told me quite the opposite.
I would sue. This podcast goes to air with that remark. Yeah. If it ain't Roger Waters, if Roger ain't there, it ain't Floyd.
Yeah, 100%. Number 9, name an artist whose output you will consume anything they release, even if you have to be apologetic for it.
Trent Reznor. Reznor. He's time and time again, he has earned it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And that kind of dovetails with like my thing about soundtrack music and chill music. I mean, when Downward Spiral dropped, The Warm Place was one of my favorite points on that album. And I absolutely love, I mean, most great artists never do this. I love how that one little germ of a I don't want to say throwaway, but this weird little song on this landmark Extreme album, just this little beautiful melodic instrumental passage would later grow into this whole giant wing of his career. Now he might have as many instrumental albums as he does proper Nine Inch Nails releases, you know?
Yeah. Trent Reznor has one of my favorite moments in a live performance ever. I saw him at the Virgin Mobile Festival. I can't even remember what year it was, but it was shortly after Kanye West came out and said that he didn't believe in festivals because it forces people to choose who they want to listen to. You know, two great bands could be playing at the same time. And Nine Inch Nails were playing at the same time that Kanye was about to start. And Trent goes, we're going to cut our set a little short tonight so that you guys can go watch Kanye so that he doesn't cry. And it was like one of my favorite moments. I was like, that is amazing. And then Kanye was awesome too. So
yeah, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Trent Reznor.
That's awesome, isn't it?
This is also on my list of time travel shows. Like if I had a time machine and I could go back, I would want to see them during the Broken period when they were still playing clubs.
Yeah.
That little insane scene, like they memorialized in the Wish video. Mm-hmm. That's what I would want to see. And one of the things I kick myself about is being in Pittsburgh in 1989, 1990, 1992. All that shit was happening like 2 hours from me. And I didn't know, and I didn't think to, even after the first album broke, I didn't think to investigate it and think, oh, well, Nine Inch Nails is from Cleveland. Why don't I go over there and see the most awesome shit ever? So that's something else that informs my my career as a rock writer. You know, I felt that many rock writers just did not service me the way I needed it. You know, nobody really grabbed me by the throat and said, Nine Inch Nails is right over there. Go. So hopefully I've been able to open people's eyes to a couple cool things like that. Well, that's what I tried to do anyway.
That's awesome. That brings us to our 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time?
Man, favorite Jawn of all time. I mentioned Batman already, so I might have to go with Glenn Danzig, my dude. Most talented guy to come out of the punk scene. It's a guy that had a #1 classical album, guy that had 3 great bands in a row, guy that's been doing what he's doing continually for over 40 years now. He's written for 2 Hall of Fame artists, Johnny Cash, Roy Orbison. He's been covered by 2 Hall of Fame artists, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Glenn Danzig, man. Everything that dude does. He's another dude that lifetime subscription for.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, sir, I thank you so much for doing this interview and joining me on the podcast here. Can you tell all of these fine people how they can find all of your good stuff on the internet?
Man, just go to Twitter, look for DX Ferris. That'll get me on. And go to Amazon. All my shit's on Amazon. All my stuff is rather. Sorry, I'll be stuffy here. All my books are available at Amazon.com, where you can find many of the profound discourse that we were able to uncover about Slayer. But yeah, Amazon, Twitter, that's where I spend the most time. That's the best place to get my books. It's all there. Check it out.
I love it. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause for my friend DX Ferris.
Hey, thank you for having me, brother. You know, I never met any of my brother's friends and thought, like, this kid's a dipshit. I don't get why he hangs out with this dude. So, I mean, you're among the good dudes, but obviously you are at the top of the list. And we got stories we can tell. We didn't even get to talk about Grand Buffet much. So next time.
Yes,
but
definitely.
Thank you for having me.
I would love to have you on again.
It's been a lot of fun because we care about some shit that not a lot of people care about. And that's important to me.
That is true. And I think that's one of the things that has definitely bonded me and your brother, and I believe bonds us, is that we love fucking good shit that a lot of people overlook. And I absolutely appreciate that. And I also want to add that mostly for the listeners, you know this because we've had this conversation, but you were one of the first people I came to with this podcast idea because I wanted to bounce some ideas off of you. And you gave me a lot of incredible advice and a lot of help in getting this started. So it is absolute honor to be able to have you on here.
Hey, you're doing well with it. Again, if you take anything away from this, just take away the idea that somebody out there is doing what you want to do, and it might as well be you. And if you can find a little bit of time every day to work on it, you can make that happen.
I love it. I love it. All right, I'm going to hit stop, and then we can chat a little bit. But again, dude, thank you.
Hey, thanks everybody for listening. Check out the stuff if it sounds good to you. If not, have a great holiday season. Be careful out there. Peace.
And be on the lookout for the Christmas mix. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, follow us on Facebook, and visit our website at www.yothat'smyjawn.com for interviews, articles, DJ mixes, and more. We want to hear from you. What's your Jawn?
Displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be measured. You ain't being judged, you won't get a score. So what the fuck is you faking for? If you like it, admit it, don't quit it. You feel what you feel, man.